have to help you. You, the master of this stupid stuff.
Wild Wild West.
I don't have a radio.
Jacob the Liar.
Well, I'm not expecting flowers, but will we call each other?
Well, look, I was kind of hoping for flowers.
Message in a Bottle. What do these films have in common? Well, either I think, or Joel Siegel thinks, or we both think that they are very, very bad movies. And on this special edition of the worst movies of 1999, we're going to let them have it. I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Joel Siegel of ABC's Good Morning America. It's payback time.
Sweet revenge. Okay, just a word before we begin. The traditional ground rules for this program, set up years ago by Gene Siskel and myself, are we don't pick on obscure little films, no matter how bad they are. We pick on big, visible films since they're more likely to be seen by more people and therefore cause more suffering. And we're calling our first category New But Not Improved. TV material recycled into unnecessary feature films. And my choice is Inspector Gadget, a cartoon that simply looked preposterous as live action. Matthew Broderick starred as the Gadgeteer who could summon up amazing gizmos if only he could remember the right cue words.
Go, go, Gadget! Coil! Skates! I meant skates! Come here, Carl Lewis. Forward! Forward! Oh, for crying out loud!
Fans of the TV cartoon were enraged that the movie showed them the face of the arch-villain, Dr. Claw. He always went unseen on TV, and they didn't want to see him in the movie. One person who might agree with them is Rupert Everett, who played Dr. Claw. One of the freedoms of cartoons is their freedom from the ordinary laws of time and space, and in animation, we accept that, but in live action, unless it's done very well, it's not funny, it's just peculiar, and that's what this movie was.
I kept waiting for the gadget that would allow me to walk out of the theater, but it's not as bad as my pick in this category. Christopher Lloyd and Jeff Daniels, who star in my favorite Martian, a film version of the 60s TV series that starred Ray Walston. Among other felonies these filmmakers committed is one comedy writers called joking the joke. That's where filmmakers try to get the audience to think a movie's funny because the characters have funny hats or drive funny cars. I have yet to see a successful comedy where the hero drives a funny car. And my favorite Martian, Jeff Daniels, drives a 61 Valiant, misidentified, if I heard correctly, as a 62 Plymouth, but then the entire film was misidentified as a comedy.
We're gonna crash! I think not!
I don't understand why Hollywood insists on spending tens of millions of dollars to make a film version of a TV series that, if it were a TV series this year, would be canceled.
Maybe the test they should use is, was the show any good in the first place? For example, the Flintstones kind of translated a little bit better than this. Now, my thumb was down on this. I did like Christopher Lloyd. I did like some of the special effects, so I didn't hate it as much as you did, but I think you've asked an excellent question, and I think the answer is because these shows are brand names. People have heard of the show, so therefore they've heard of the movie, and you don't need to spend as much money to establish it. Maybe that's the reason.
But we have to suffer through them. Speaking of
Yes, we
which,
do.
the next category we suffered through, Mopey and Dopey. No, it's not Love Gone Sour Among the Seven Dwarfs. It's Love Stories Gone Sour at a theater near you. What would a worse list be without a Kevin Costner movie? This year he gave us two to choose from. It was close, but I'll go with Message in a Bottle, a slick, expensive, absolutely obvious and uninteresting tearjerker. Robin Wright Penn finds a message in a bottle, a love letter meant for a wife who died. She traces the typewriter, tracks down the writer, who just happens to be Kevin Costner.
This was going to be my signature boat, the one we'd never sell.
And when will you finish it?
Haven't touched it in 2 years.
I think the worst thing that happened to Kevin Costner was Dances with Wolves. It was too good and too easy too soon. He got spoiled. I don't think he's made a good movie since. But I do want to be fair. Paul Newman was so good in A Message in a Bottle. When the movie was over, I went and bought 3 jars of tomato sauce and ate them right out of the can.
He was really fine in this movie, and everything else was contrived and pretentious, and the ending was utterly and totally without credibility
or redeeming social value.
Any form of redeeming merit. I agree with you. My candidate, though, in the mopey-dopey category is, I think, even mopier and dopier than yours, because at least Message in a Bottle was about romance, whereas The Story of Us is completely inexplicable because it's mostly about a couple that has stopped loving one another, so they fight for most of the movie. The film stars Bruce Willis and Michelle Pfeiffer as a couple whose love is long since drained out of their marriage. The movie thinks their fights explain themselves, so there's no context, no motivation, just a lot of angry behavior.
2 Italian ices, please.
Honey, you don't have to say Italian. We're here, they know.
So what are you saying, that if I'm in Belgium and I order a Belgian waffle, I just say waffle?
Yes, just like if you were in Ireland and you wanted a bowl of Irish stew, you'd just say stew.
Michelle Pfeiffer and Bruce Willis are good actors and attractive people, but who in the world thought it would be entertaining to show them as two miserable sad sacks? I guess it was Rob Reiner who made this movie. I mean, if this had been a movie with the ambition to probe deeply into marital problems, that would have been one thing. But The Story of Us is as shallow as it is depressing.
I had heard that it started as a comedy, and they decided to make it serious. I don't know why, but the best line, I have to quote our peer and my friend Janet Maslin of the New York Times, who said, "This movie is so bad, people in the audience who weren't married were filing for divorce."
Coming up next, big stars and big bombs.
Excuse me?
The original Toy Story is coming to video in a special edition at a great low price. Get the movie that started it all.
You don't have one? Get one!
Now with special bonus programming that gives you the real story behind Toy Story. On this special edition, January 11th.
In feature films, the production assistant gets stuff where it needs to be. A dozen glaze, a dozen chocolate. So my car is pretty much my office. Last week, I moved a flock of geese and 25 bowling balls. In 8 days, I drove about 1,000 miles. Some people may have a window office or a corner office. Me, I've got a window office that corners.
The hard-working Saturn SL.
Julie, what's your 20?
I'm in the car.
You've been working hard all day, and now it's time to kick back and reach for a cool one. York Peppermint Patty. Get the sensation.
Chevy Blazer. A little security in an insecure world. Blazer, like a rock.
January 2000. The zeros make you think of tires. Les Schwab Tires January clearance. Sale prices on Spectrum all-season radials for passenger cars. Trailcat all-season radials for pickups and SUVs. Les Schwab 60-month battery. Custom wheels. A huge selection. Even brakes on sale. We do it right. We do it complete. We're doing it now. January clearance sale time at Les Schwab Tire Centers everywhere.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the BBC in London.
That's Robin Williams in a scene from Jacob the Liar, a very unhappy addition to my worst films of the year list. A film about the Holocaust that not only fails to capture the terror of being a Jew in Nazi-occupied Poland, it doesn't even seem to try. Williams plays Jacob, who pretends he's heard on a radio that Russian troops will soon liberate his ghetto. It's not that Jacob lies. The film bends truth and historical fact for the convenience of the plot. Here is my, do I call it my favorite? Jews in Nazi-occupied ghetto getting a lunch break with lunch.
How could you tell they were American tanks?
Well, you get to know the difference. You know, American tanks, it's a different noise entirely.
What kind of noise?
Clean.
There's too much in Jacob the Liar that just isn't kosher. No signs in Yiddish. A young girl celebrates Shabbat, a word Eastern Europeans didn't use in 1944. With so many denying that it ever even happened, the Holocaust deserves attention to detail. This is a serious worst movie.
Oh, it really is bad, and without any of the heart that it thinks it has. So it's cloying because it thinks it's moving you and it's just kind of amazing you. A movie like Life is Beautiful, which was criticized by some for making entertainment out of the Holocaust, had its heart in the right place. This movie has its brain in the wrong place. Okay, continuing our category, Big Stars in Bad Movies, I'm going to nominate Sandra Bullock and Ben Affleck in Forces of Nature. They play strangers who meet after they survive an airplane crash together and decide to share a rental car for the drive to Savannah, Georgia.
Two wayward travelers stuck in a jail with a guy named Vic.
Suspect is Victor Franco, 3 priors for possession.
The journey includes all kinds of shamelessly contrived adventures, arrests, crashes, trees that fall on their car, storms they get in. Then they find themselves performing in a strip club. This isn't a story, it's an explosion at the road movie cliche factory. Forces of Nature is a dead zone of boring conversations and contrived emergencies, ending with a crashing, jaw-droppingly unbelievable anticlimax. And as for romantic chemistry, Affleck acts like he's chaperoning his best friend's sister as a favor, not a lover.
And the premise, it's a terrific premise. Two people who don't know each other come together. Some of the best movies ever made, the best stories ever told like that. And this...
Well, that's the cute meet, you know, where two people meet each other and then they get to like each other. But come on, no two people have ever had this many adventures in a lifetime, let alone in a week.
Coming up later, we each pick the year's worst movie. But coming up next, movies that self-destructed in a big way.
Direct from 2 record-smashing years on Broadway, Rob Becker's Defending the Caveman.
It was hysterical. Every couple should see this together.
A man doesn't just watch the TV, a man actually becomes the TV.
That's us.
I laughed so hard I had to borrow a tissue from the lady next door to me.
Rob Becker's Defending the Caveman, the longest-running solo play in Broadway history.
Tickets are on sale now. Part of the KeyBank Best of Broadway series, sponsored by Delta Airlines.
Wix Furniture is having this sale.
It's beyond words. It's big.
It's a monster.
It's gargantuan. It's me.
It's Wix Furniture's biggest sale of the year, and it's on now. Once-a-year savings, especially on bedding. Buy any Simmons Beauty Rest on sale and get a rebate of up to $100 back. Plus great financing, no monthly payments, and no finance charges due for 1 year with a Wix charge.
Oh, that reminds me. I'll give my wife a hint. I'll buy a love seat.
Well, it sure is nice in paradise. A little lonely, but, well, who do we have here? Arr, you're a real bird of paradise.
Yeah, real original. So, who are you anyway?
What do you mean, who am I? I'm Adam. May I tempt you with a Red Bull?
Tempt me with a bull? Hello, it's a job for a snake.
But, my dear, Red Bull's an energy drink. It gives you wings.
Oh, tempting, very tempting. But why do you want to fly out of paradise?
Because that's where my van is parked.
Ooh.
What is she doing?
Continuing this special program on the year's worst movies, the next category is parodies that self-destructed. And my choice is a spoof of monster movies named Lake Placid. This one has an all-star cast: Bridget Fonda, Bill Pullman, Oliver Platt, even Betty White, using words the Golden Girls never used. It's about a 30-foot crocodile that occupies a lake that is not, by the way, named Lake Placid, and munches on cows and scuba divers.
White perch. Are they feeding? They aren't feeding. They're scared.
Here's a film that takes a multi-million-dollar cast and has them roll around in cheap little aluminum boats. First it's gruesome, then it's camp, then it's satirical, then there are little intellectual chats about the meaning of it all, and every time it gets rolling, it stops dead and changes direction, kind of like the crocodile.
I was very lucky with this film. I took your advice. I missed it.
Don't go to see it now.
I will
Just give
not.
us another picture.
To me, Wild Wild West isn't just a movie gone bad. Wild Wild West represents the very worst about the Hollywood system. They can create huge and amazing special effects, but they can't solve the simplest problem in filmmaking: how to tell a story. Why spend millions to reshoot the ending when the beginning stinks too? And why make Kevin Kline's character a master of disguise? This was not only before movies and TV, this takes place before newspapers could print photographs. A master of disguise from who? Nobody knows what he looked like.
Please, I realize I look like something out of James Fenimore Cooper, but I assure you I mean you no harm. My name is Artemis Gordon, and if I'm not mistaken, you're in trouble.
Not even Kevin Kline or Will Smith could save this movie. The number I heard Wild Wild West cost $180 million. This isn't just a worst movie, it's an epic worst movie.
You know what happens with some of these? I think that they start out with the special effects and they block in all of those sequences, and then there was a timetable for a release in the theaters and a timetable for using all of the millions they've spent, and no time to stop if they realize they don't have a story, characters, or a script.
Also, you get the feeling that they spend so much on special effects, they've got to use them whether they work or not.
Yeah, and usually they don't.
Our next category of bad movies we're calling What's the Matter with Kids Today? And my choice is Cruel Intentions. Here's the story. Ryan Philippe bets Sarah Michelle Gellar he can bed Reese Witherspoon. If Ryan loses, Sarah Michelle gets his Jaguar. If he wins...
I'll give you something you've been obsessing about ever since our parents got married.
Cruel Intentions is based on Dangerous Liaisons with Glenn Close and John Malkovich, but they were grown-ups, and that happened in 18th century France. So some Hollywood genius who I will bet my car doesn't have a teenage daughter said, hey, let's remake it and make them high school kids. It happens to be a well-made, good-looking film, but to me, that makes it even worse.
You know, I like this movie. And I especially like Ryan Philippe, who kind of plays the James Spader role. And what I liked about the film was that the kids are allowed to be smart and articulate and to use language as if they knew what words meant and they loved what words meant.
But should 16 and 17-year-old kids be the subject of a movie that's going to be R-rated, that's about deflowering
Joel,
a high school girl?
There were 12 or 15 movies last year about who's going to go to the senior prom, and all of them had a lot of sex in it. This is the only smart one, so why penalize it?
Because this was the one that I liked least.
Okay, I have a nomination in this category that I think is a whole lot worse than Cruel Intentions. It's called Jawbreaker. Perfect example of what I'm talking about. It tells the story of how the three most popular girls in school play a practical joke that accidentally ends with one of their friends being choked to death on a jawbreaker. The least popular girl in school learns of their crime, and to shut her up, they decide to bribe her by making her popular too.
A rose, too obvious. Never send a rose unless dyed black as a warning. And if one is sent to you, destroy it, along with the sender. Emotionally, of course. It's not like we kill people. On purpose.
What's amazing about this movie is the depth of its cynicism, also the stupidity of a plot where an obvious clue to the crime is ignored by the detective, Pam Grier, just because the plot needs her to arrest someone else at that point. Jawbreaker is a movie made by and for people with many other things on their little minds.
Cynicism is the word that you use, and that's what troubled me about Cruel Intentions, just the cynical attitude. And because it really was a well-made and smart film, to me that did make it even worse.
So you're still going back to Cruel Intentions. What about Jawbreaker, though? Because that's an example of the fact that these movies are made all the time.
That's right, they are made all the time, and they're made only to make money.
Coming up next, dubious overachievements.
Excuse me, where's plywood?
Aisle 20.
Are you a prodigy? Prodigy Internet.
You lingered over the coffee pot. Now you can't eclipse it. A spicy lunch and your breath is hot. Now you can't eclipse it.
Discover new Eclipse Gum from Wrigley. Each piece delivers a powerful burst of fresheners that quickly eliminate the strongest mouth odors.
Say goodbye to all of that. Erase bad breath in seconds flat. Now you can eclipse it, yeah. Now you can eclipse it.
It's new Eclipse Sugar-Free Gum from Wrigley.
Okay, we call our next category Dubious Overachievement, and my nominee is Magnolia. And what's sad is that Magnolia starts great and stays great for 2 hours. A terrific cast: Julianne Moore, Jason Robards, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Tom Cruise. Wow, the way you have never seen him. And just when you're wondering how writer-director Paul Thomas Anderson can weave all these storylines together, you realize he can't.
I have so many debts, so many things. I have my surgery, my oral surgery coming.
What surgery?
Oral surgery! Corrective teeth surgery.
What is that?
Braces.
There's one desperate sequence when dying people sing a song, and then a special effect I can't begin to describe that has nothing to do with anything we've seen before that I couldn't watch. Literally could not watch. This is not a genius. Well, this is a very talented filmmaker who needs someone like the old-fashioned movie moguls to throw the script back in his face and say, come on,
this is our biggest disagreement on this show. And Paul Thomas Anderson, his previous movie was Boogie Nights, has surpassed himself with this film, and I especially liked the very stuff you didn't like, the magic realism that takes place. There was something, I'm not going to give it away, that amazed and delighted me. That was so refreshing that something happened at the end of a movie which was completely consistent with the way it was set up with all of those urban legends, so it was prepared for. And then I'm sitting there seeing something new that I hadn't seen before.
Boy, there are a lot of
sense.
things you could see that you haven't seen before that I just didn't want to look at. And this was about 4 million of them dropping from the sky.
Okay, well, in that case, we disagree on that one. But of all the overblown dumb movies of 1999 that I would put on my list, one of my choices would certainly be The Messenger, the story of Joan of Arc. The story of Joan of Arc is, of course, essentially the story of a young girl's struggle with her conscience and with the terrors of the medieval Inquisition. At least that's what you think, but not here. Luc Besson's film thinks Joan's story is essentially a war movie and spends so much time on the battlefield that Joan becomes sort of a female French Braveheart. I was so disillusioned that by the end I could hardly believe it when they actually did let Joan burn at the stake. I was expecting maybe one of those scenes where the brave horseman gallops into the square and snatches her out of the flames.
How can you make a movie about Joan of Arc? I said in my review that lucky it was a Frenchman who directed it. If it had been an American director, the French would demand Louisiana back. There's nothing religious, there's nothing uplifting, there's nothing dynamic about the film.
It's kind of like a psychic on one of those talk shows, only instead of finding out where she's going to win the lottery, she decides she's going to save
Not even
France.
a talk show, one of those 900 numbers.
Okay, coming up next, we each pick the worst films of the year.
Mounds and Almond Joy, because everybody needs a 5-minute vacation.
The exciting thing about this ride isn't the 90-foot drop. It's the woman in the front seat. She's got asthma, but she's got help. Help control your asthma with Singulair. It's a single tablet daily that's not a steroid. It's also available for children 6 and older. Ask your doctor about adding once-a-day Singulair and help control your asthma. Singulair should not be used to treat acute asthma attacks. Continue taking your other asthma medicines unless your doctor tells you to stop or change the dose. If symptoms get worse, contact your doctor at once. Side effects are generally mild and may include headache, flu, and stomach pain. Read the consumer information your doctor or pharmacist can provide. Help control your asthma with Singulair.
When Jan invited Ned to her survivors group, he wasn't sure. He hadn't beaten cancer like she had, or bounced back from a heart attack like Frank. But Jan reminded him, problem gambling is an illness, and he'd worked hard to recover, just like the rest of them. Like other illnesses, the key to surviving problem gambling is treatment. If you know someone who needs help, start the healing process by calling 1-800-233-8479 now.
With AT&T Digital One Rate, this isn't just any phone. It's my Hey Rob, how's the powder in Utah phone. My I'll take red, no make that teal phone. My how are you doing in college phone. My can you deliver the piano on Tuesday phone. My Casey scored a goal phone.
The world of wireless has changed. AT&T Digital One Rate. No roaming or long-distance charges across 50 states. And now you can have AT&T Digital One Rate starting at $59.99 a month.
And now we arrive at the top, or maybe it's the bottom category, our individual choices for the worst single film of 1999. And my choice is a singularly unpleasant comedy named Baby Geniuses. The movie stars Kathleen Turner as a woman who funds a secret laboratory run by Christopher Lloyd, in which it is proven that babies can talk to one another, and not just talk, but scheme, punch, kick, spit, and attack adults with karate kicks. When the babies talk, special effects make their little mouths seem to move kind of like those talking photographs on Conan O'Brien that aren't quite lined up with the words. The effect on me was Goosebumps crossed with the fingernails on a blackboard effect.
This is a terrible movie.
It is a very bad movie.
It's a truly terrible movie. Who comes up with the idea, let's destroy infancy, let's destroy young children?
Who wants to see a baby karate champion?
And who gives somebody $15, $20 million to make it?
Who indeed?
My worst, the ominously titled Pokemon, the first movie spawned by the fad that has led to robberies, muggings, even counterfeit rings, mostly in the under 10 set. But that's not why this is the worst film of the year. We're told the fact that parents can't figure out Pokemon is part of the reasons kids love them so much, as if we don't have enough prying our families apart. But even that's not why this is the worst film of the year.
Who will rule? My super Pokemon? Or your pathetic group of spineless, inferior Pokemon?
The first movie I ever saw was Pinocchio. A kid's first movie should be that magical. And Roger, I feel sorry for kids whose first movie was Pokemon. Not special, just venal. Not magic, just there to make money.
You know, you're right. It's just action and violence and colors and noise. It's not a story. It has nothing to say to the imagination, nothing to say to the heart, and nothing to say to the mind. We're taking our kids and we're giving them basically entertainment junk food. Oh, but this was supposed to be an upbeat show. Joel, thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks for having me.
It was fun to be in the balcony. We had a few disagreements, and that's part of the game. Remember, you can hear our reviews on the web at ebert-movies.com, part of Go Network, and my print reviews are at suntimes.com/Ebert. Next week, some new movies, including Woody Harrelson and Antonio Banderas as battling boxers in Play It to the Bone. And also Winona Ryder and Angelina Jolie as mental patients in Girl Interrupted. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
Please pass the Polaner all fruit.
Would you please pass the all fruit?
Oh.
Naturally delicious Polaner all fruit, sweetened only with fruit juice.
Pop Secret is the only microwave popcorn made with real Land O'Lakes butter. Pop Secret, perfect popcorn is our passion.
For serious oral care, use Rembrandt whitening toothpaste. For extra whitening with less abrasion. For a healthier mouth, for the life of your teeth. Rembrandt toothpaste.
Introducing America Online new version 5.0. Now it's easier to stay in touch and even easier to get started. AOL new version 5.0. Sign up today.
Closed captioning for Roger Ebert and the Movies is brought to you by
Cheeseburger!
Juicy, cheesy.
Cheeseburger!
Cheeseburger Hot Pockets. It's a guess, but we think people will like it. Cheeseburger from
Hot Pockets.
My honey barbecue wings are back. Got a new sandwich, too.
Now get your KFC honey barbecue 2 ways. Wings or in the new honey barbecue sandwich. Each just $1.99.
Do you like soup? Me too.
To make a great vegetable soup, you need at least 11 vegetables.
Be so sweet, they taste like fresh kisses. Simmer it slowly with a lot of love. It takes time to make my thick country vegetable soup. But if you don't have time, I will come and do it for you. Because now you have 18 of my soups at your supermarket. So take me home with you. I'm no trouble, really.
That Tombstone. Nothing satisfies your appetite like a hot, delicious Tombstone pizza.
What do you want on your tombstone?
Did you know that closed captioning can help your children learn to read?
And it can bring you some peace. When you turn on the captioning, you can turn down the volume.
Just pull up your menu, find the area that contains closed captioning, arrow down to it, and select C1.
Or on your remote, if there's a CC button, push it and choose C1. You'll find captioning on almost every TV built since 1993.
So turn it on and discover the power of captioning.
Brought to you by Fred Meyer and KATU, the power of 2000.
Senators Wyden and Smith today at 9 on AM Northwest.